I'm going to give you some stats about the Syracuse defense through 5 games, which, spoiler alert, is nearly half the regular season. That's right. After Syracuse has its game against SMU, they are officially halfway through the 2025 regular season. Side note, can you believe how fast this season has already gone by? That we're 5 weeks through? That's crazy, right? Syracuse sitting at 3-2 in decent shape so far. But let's get to the numbers about this Syracuse defense, okay? Syracuse allows 174 rushing yards a game. They allow 5.4 yards per carry. Both of those stats I just mentioned are dead last in the ACC. And when I say dead last, I actually mean dead last because it's not particularly close to any of the other teams that are ranked ahead of them in the ACC, which is all of them, because Syracuse is in last place in rushing defense, rush yards, and yards allowed a carry. Syracuse also has 6 sacks through 5 games in 2025. That is second worst in the conference. So, woohoo. They are not last at getting to the quarterback in the conference. Who are they ahead of? North Carolina, who stinks and has played 1 less game than Syracuse football this season. That's the only team. And so theoretically, if North Carolina gets 3 sacks in their next game, they could be ahead of Syracuse with 1 less game. So yeah, this defense is a dangerously bad combo here where they do not stop the run and they do not get to the quarterback. Syracuse's leader in sacks through 5 games. Leader in sacks through 5 games is Brahim Long. Brahim Long is a defensive back, and he is leading the team with 2 sacks in 5 games. That's simply not good enough if you are Syracuse football. He is a defensive back. Remember David Reese, the transfer that Syracuse brought in from Cal? 11 sacks over the past 2 seasons playing in a power conference. Where has he been this season? Because David Reese has half a sack and 2 tackles for loss in 5 games. 11 sacks the past 2 years. What happened? Where did that pass rushing ability go? I don't know, and he's an 8th-year senior, but he's not the only one. I'm not just picking on David Reese, trust me. So what do you do with the Syracuse football defensive line? Now, I know a lot of you in the comment section below are on this or in this camp, and don't worry, I'm getting into that camp soon. Don't worry, trust me. Which is to fire the defensive coordinator. Fire Elijah Robinson. That is the solution for the Syracuse football defense. And look, if this continues, I'm fully on board with you if that is your opinion that Syracuse needs to make a change at defensive coordinator, because last year the defense wasn't very good and it had more talent. It had more NFL talent and it still wasn't very good with Elijah Robinson. And this year, it's even worse. It is worse than what it was in 2024. And someone at the end of the day, assuming this continues, is going to have to fall on the sword. It's got to happen. Someone has to fall on the sword here. He's the defensive coordinator. His defenses are unacceptable. They can't stop the run. They can't get to the quarterback. But it's not as simple as change the defensive coordinator and everything is going to be okay. This program, this is just looking broad here, needs to invest significantly more resources into its defensive line. Significantly more. Let's go through their additions and subtractions this season, okay? Syracuse football lost their 2 best defensive linemen from a year ago, one of which was due to eligibility. That was Fadil Diggs, okay? They got Fadil Diggs in the transfer portal from Texas A&M. He was great for Syracuse last year. He was a bright spot along that defensive line. The other bright spot was Murad Watson, a true freshman who entered the spring portal and got a bag and a bag and a half, maybe 2 bags to go over and play for the Texas Longhorns. How did Syracuse respond? How did they replace those guys? Glad you asked. Syracuse football added in the portal George Rooks, who was ranked 918th overall in the portal per 24/7 Sports. They added Chris Thomas from Marshall, ranked 1,040 in the transfer portal per 24/7 Sports, and David Reese ranked 1,233. So I guess we shouldn't have had high expectations for David Reese, but I think that's more because of the fact he's an eighth-year senior. You only have him for 1 year, so there's no long-term upside with a guy like David Reese. But he had 11 sacks in the past 2 years in a power conference. But so far, he is definitely playing like the 1,233rd best player overall in the transfer portal. And I understand that Syracuse, they don't have the biggest budget in the world. They are not going to be able to, on face value, go dollar for dollar with a program like Texas. If Texas wants a Syracuse player, Texas is probably going to be able to outbid Syracuse for said player. But there's got to be better investment by Syracuse football. It's just plain and simple. It's got to be a lot better because what we're seeing right now on the field from this defensive line can't get to the quarterback, can't stop the run. It's just not acceptable. We're 5 games into this year. They can't do either of those things. You combine those transfer portal ads with what Syracuse retained for this season, which veteran returners like Dennis Jacques and Kevin Jobity, neither of those guys prior to this season have proven that they could be plus starters at a power conference level. And guess what? They are definitely not plus starters right now in a power conference. And now you start to realize how Syracuse can't stop the run and can't get to the quarterback. And to top it all off, Syracuse has had nobody break out along the defensive line. Not one single player has broken out for Syracuse along the defensive line. So let's recap Let's recap everything right here, okay? With this defensive line and why it has not performed this season. Number one, you lost significant talent from a year ago. Fadil Diggs and Murad Watson, they're gone. How did you replace them? Glad you asked. They did not make good transfer portal additions. All of them have not been very good for Syracuse football. Number three, you got no plus key returning players along that defensive line, aside from maybe Tank Wilson, and that's about it. And then finally, you got no breakout players, young or old, along the defensive line. How about that? So my message is prove me wrong. I'd love to be wrong about this defensive line. Here's the deal with Syracuse, okay? I'm a Syracuse fan. I'm a Syracuse alum. I would rather be wrong and happy than right and miserable.